Anti-derivative Jill.
I'm anti-derivative Jill, and joining me on this epic journey is Tiger Stripes. And welcome to A Year's Journey Through Middle-earth, Book 1, Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past. And so everyone in the Shire continues to gossip about Bilbo disappearing. Oh, right. So they continue to gossip about Bilbo, basically for so long that he becomes a legend in children's tales. Many think that Bilbo went nuts and fell into a pool or river, and so they most think that he's passed away, except for Frodo. And so Frodo continues to celebrate Bilbo's birthday because he believes he's alive. Some hobbits blame Gandalf on what's happened to Bilbo and hope that Gandalf will leave Frodo alone so that he can gain some hobbit sense. And it seems Gandalf did stay away, but Frodo didn't gain that hobbit sense since he carried on with all of Bilbo's old habits. He had lots of friends and continued to celebrate his birthday, as I said. And he was close friends with Merry, or Meriadoc, Brandybuck, and Pippin, or Peregrine.
Peregrine Took. I'm still not sure if it's Took or Took.
I'm happy with however you want to pronounce it. I am terrible with pronunciation, so I'm just going to say
stay with Took. Yes.
Took?
It's probably Took if you're actually
I
in
guess
the Shire, like North England, where they say Book.
I should listen to some videos with Tolkien speaking and see how he says it.
I've got a whole series of CDs. I've got to go find them, and I haven't even unwrapped them yet. Although his accent's fairly impenetrable as well. I'm sure it'll get easier the more I listen to it.
So, like Bilbo, Frodo doesn't seem to be aging ever since his 33rd birthday when he was given the ring. And by the time he approaches 50, he starts to get restless about going on an adventure. He remembers that this is the age when Bilbo started his journey. As a way to prepare, he either goes on walks with his friends or by himself, where he'd gather information from elves and dwarves passing through. Some of those dwarves seem to be in trouble, looking for refuge, and speaking about the enemy and of the land of Mordor, which to hobbits really only exists as a shadow in their memories. It seemed, in this quote from the book, it seemed that the evil power in Mirkwood had been driven out by the White Council, only to reappear in greater strength in the old strongholds of Mordor. Frodo's collecting all this news. I just appreciate that Tolkien keeps his timeline straight from when he talks about stuff that happened in The Hobbit and relating it to what's happening now. Oh, that's lovely. The hill, Hobbiton, across the water. Yes, and this basically encompasses most of all 6 chapters that we engage with, except for maybe the end of chapter 6, because the Old Forest isn't here, unless that's the Old Forest on the left. I don't know. Also, Frodo learns that the orcs are multiplying. Oh, you're muted if you are talking, Tiger Stripes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
struggling with the presentation keys. Yes. Yeah, that's by Tolkien himself, and
he drew this.
Yes, and he drew it in 1937, long before the book was published.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so did he draw this for The Hobbit for his original story?
I think he had. That's a good question. A good question.
He already had the Lord of the Rings in his mind. He just hadn't put it on paper yet.
I think he did. But I'd have to read a little more of the biographies and get the timeline straight and that kind of thing. Right now, I'm just looking at the timeline of the books, and that's a brainful. Third age, fourth age.
Yeah, he was really a rather good artist too.
He was very good. He had a beautiful eye for composition, and not everybody can do that.
True, and good with shadows and perspective and distance. More news that Frodo learns about are that orcs are multiplying, trolls are getting smarter, and they're arming themselves with weapons. So he's not getting very good news. But meanwhile, at the Green Dragon, Sam is gossiping, just like his dad. Sam believes that Bilbo did really encounter a dragon, but some people question that. Like Ted Sandyman isn't buying it. Nor does he believe the reports that Sam heard that there were elm trees walking around like giants. And he also says, Sam also reports that elves are going to the harbors away beyond the White Tower. So they're sailing off and away. And that seems to be something everybody agrees that the elves are around. But even Ted doesn't even believe. He said he's never seen them sail. So what does this guy believe? He doesn't believe it unless he sees it himself. Ted says Bilbo was cracked and Frodo's cracking. If that's where you get your news from, you'll never want for moonshine.
He's such a jerk.
He is. Gandalf reappears in the Shire after a while to finally talk to Frodo about the ring, and that it is far more powerful than he dared to think at first. As you know, Bilbo and Frodo's aging stood still when they're in possession of the ring. This is because the ring bearer won't age or die in a normal sense. Instead, he begins to fade until he's completely invisible and becomes entirely consumed by the power of the ring and becomes always visible to the creator, who of course we know is Sauron. So it doesn't matter, even if you're a good person, if you're the ring bearer, it doesn't matter if your intentions are good. Eventually it's going to consume you with evil, and that power eventually will not be able, you cannot resist it. Sauron puts some of himself within the ring.
It's interesting how Frodo, through all of this information and history, which I think is what the Shadow of the Past, the title refers to, is the history of the ring specifically. And he's in denial. He kind of keeps pushing. How do you know? How can you be sure? He doesn't really want to come to grips with it. He doesn't want to take on the responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. But Gandalf has a description of hobbits. Yeah, right? Nobody would want to do this. I like the description Gandalf has of hobbits. Soft as butter they can be, and yet sometimes as tough as old tree roots. So Sauron's basically forgotten all about hobbits until now. So now it's no longer safe to keep the ring in Hobbiton anymore, because Gollum went there and spilled the beans, not willingly, but he did. Gandalf throws the ring into the fire to prove that it is. I guess that's one of the pieces of evidence that he gives to Frodo, that this is the ring of power. The ring is in the fire, but it doesn't grow hot. But what it does do is it shows up. Fiery letters appear alongside it. One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all. And in the darkness bind them.
That's the last two stanzas of the entire. May I read the entire poem?
You may, please.
Thank you. So here are all the rings that fall under the power of the One Ring. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. Ooh, boy, does that give me the willies.
Yeah, yikes. And that explains why Frodo does not want anything to do with this. He says, I wish it need not have happened in my time. And Gandalf responds, so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us.
I have a Gandalf quote here.
Please.
And he says, behind that there was something else at work beyond any design of the ringmaker. That it came to Frodo. Beyond any design of the ringmaker, I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you also were meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. It is not, said Frodo. So Frodo is still not having any of it. No comfort. I found a quote from Tolkien to his son in 1944, while Christopher was serving in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War. Tolkien wrote, "I sometimes feel appalled at the thought of the sum total of human misery all over the world at the present moment. The millions parted, fretting, wasting in unprofitable days, quite apart from the torture, pain, death, bereavement, injustice. All we do know, and that to a large extent by direct experience, is that evil labors with vast power and perpetual success in vain, preparing always only the soil for unexpected good to sprout in." That's very Gandalf of him.
Definitely. Yes, Gandalf is trying to make it clear to Frodo that he believes that his possession of the ring is fate, and whether or not that, I don't know if that's he believes that it should be comforting, but I'm not sure if that would comfort me. I still have to go and face that evil. That evil that you were talking about in that quote, of course, is represented with Sauron, and he only needs the one ring. He doesn't need the other ones that you were mentioning earlier. The ones with the elves, they don't know where they are, but and the 7 with the dwarves.
Yeah, the dwarves were all destroyed.
Yeah, so their rings were eaten by dragons.
Or burned by dragon fire. And the 3 elven rings Sauron never touched, which is why they still retain a certain level of purity.
Yeah, so they're not evil. The 9 rings, of course, to the men.
Yes, are still very present.
Those did fall under the evil of the One Ring, and so the owners of those rings became ring wraiths.
The Black Riders.
Yes, his most terrible servants. And then, of course, but he doesn't need any of those other rings anyway, so it doesn't matter that the elves rings are lost to him. He just needs the one. One thing that we missed was the story about what happened to the ring with Gil-galad, the Elven King, and Elendil of Westernese, who overthrew Sauron, and Isildur, who cut the ring from Sauron's hand and put it on himself, and he marched over the Gladden fields.
Isildur's Bane.
Yes, well, it was his bane, because he tried to use the ring to swim away from the orcs, but it slipped off his hand, and as he became visible, he was killed by the orcs.
All that beautiful history of poor Gollum.
Yes, so we meet Smeagol and his friend Deagol, and it was Smeagol's birthday, and he was fishing. Deagol was fishing. Smeagol was just snooping around. I think it's interesting that it says that he stopped looking up. His head and his eyes were downwards. So this is a trait that started well before the ring for him. And the two of them were fishing, and the fish dragged him down to the riverbed where dragged Deagol down to the riverbed where he found the golden ring. And Smeagol insisted, "It's my birthday. That is my ring. You should give it to me." And Deagol says, "I already bought you a present that was more than I could afford." So without
further ado, he throttle him. He just strangles him, outright murders him.
It's just the ring overpowers his mind so much so quickly that he strangles Deagol, and he takes the ring. My goodness, he didn't put a lot of thought into whether or not he wanted to kill one of his best friends. He even calls him "my love" and then kills him.
Oh, that's so creepy.
It is. And then he became sharp-eyed and keen-eared for all that was hurtful. So he finds out the ring makes him invisible. He uses it to steal and to find out secrets. And then he started making this gurgling noise in his throat. So they started calling him Gollum. And they cursed him and cast him out. And then he ran away, feeling sorry for himself and the hardness of the world, eating raw fish, cursing the brightness of the sun. He decided it would be cool and shady under those mountains. The sun could not watch me there. And so he retreats under the Misty Mountains, and he disappears from history, even to its maker. Oh, the ring, rather. The ring vanishes from history. I guess the ring is fine to stay hidden for now, while Sauron, was still basically defeated. But once Sauron's power started to grow again, the ring realizes this and escapes to the possession of Bilbo. So that's how Bilbo gets the ring during his adventures in The Hobbit. But I like this quote from Gandalf about Gollum. Even Gollum was not wholly ruined. He had proved tougher than even one of the wise might have guessed, as a hobbit might. There was a little corner of his mind that was still his own, and light came through it, as though a chink in the dark. And that happened when he talked to Bilbo, and they talked about the trees and the wind and things that he'd long forgotten about.
And told riddles.
Yes, yeah, and they both had very similar riddles that
Yes.
they could relate to each other. And in the end, really, Gandalf wants Frodo to have some compassion for Gollum, but that's not something that Frodo's capable of doing yet. Gollum hates the dark, hates light more. He hated everything and the ring most of all. He hated it and loved it, as he hated and loved himself. He could not get rid of it. He had no will left in the matter. And so the ring wants to get back to its master. And like he said, Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and Frodo was meant to have it, according to Gandalf. And then Gandalf talks to Frodo about how he was able to track down Gollum. There's a quote from Gollum here, so uh, I just wanted to read it. What had it got in its pockets? He said. It wouldn't say so. No, precious. Little cheat. Not a fair question. It cheated first, it did. It broke the rules. We ought to have it squeezed. Yes, precious. And we will, precious. And so that is a. and then.
That's our boy.
Yeah, I can't wait till he's going to show up later. Then Gandalf makes probably what he thought was his worst mistake, because he let him go, and because he let Gollum go, Gollum was attracted, since he was a dark creature. Basically, he was attracted to Mordor, so he basically he found his way there. Okay, so we lost Tiger Stripes for just a minute.
There and back again.
There.
Sorry.
Aragorn tries to find Gollum, and he helps find Gollum. Gollum found his way to Mordor, and that's now because of Gollum, Sauron knows what's happened to the ring, and he remembers hobbits. Oh, hobbits! I forgot all about those hobbits. Now that's why he sent the ring race to Hobbiton to find his ring, because all of his thoughts are bent upon finding it. And Frodo wonders why Bilbo just didn't kill Gollum when he had the chance. Gandalf says, it was pity that stayed his hand, pity and mercy, not to strike without need, and he had been well rewarded. Be sure that he took so little hurt from the evil and escaped in the end, because he began his ownership of the ring with pity. And I think that alludes to the fact that Smeagol began his ownership of the ring by murdering his friend, but Bilbo started his possession of the ring by showing mercy to Gollum.
That's a lovely observation.
Thanks.
They're alike, but they're not that alike.
Yeah, exactly. They both call it their present, though. Like you were saying before, Frodo doesn't want this burden.
It's a heavy burden.
He's still talking about Gollum, saying that Gollum deserves death, and this is one of the big quotes. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. And he's also sure that Gollum's going to have some part to play. Frodo wants to obviously, it's good that Frodo has the idea to destroy the ring, but there's only one way to do that. Oh, Gandalf's also kind of teasing Frodo that the ring's already he's already attached to the ring, And Frodo tries to cast it away, but he realizes that he just put it back in his pocket.
Yeah, it's a little beautiful piece of dialogue between the two of them. But why not destroy it, as you say should have been done long ago, cried Frodo again. If you had warned me or even sent me a message, I would have done away with it. And Gandalf says, and that's not even, and Gandalf says, all of this is just dialogue, one boom boom like a script. I would have done away with it. Would you? How would you do that? Have you ever tried? No, but I suppose one could hammer it or melt it. Try, said Gandalf. Try now. And it is like he's almost goofing on him. And he even laughs after Frodo puts it in his pocket, at which Gandalf laughs grimly, but he laughs.
Yes, that is the power the ring has over people. Gandalf says the only way to destroy the ring is to cast it in to find the cracks of doom in the depths of Orodruin in the Fire Mountain and cast the ring in there. So already it tells you the end goal right here in chapter 2. And
no, there's just, again, I'm really struck by how much foreshadowing there is in these early chapters that just take place in the Shire. When Sam's in the inn in the Green Dragon, he mentions ants, basically.
Yes.
There's just all this mentioning of all of these things that are yet to come. Just these teases. It's wonderful. And you couldn't know
Really?
when you're reading it the first time. You couldn't know that's where it's going, but that's where it's going.
Yes, Sam says that there it was an elm tree, and he says, oh, actually, Sam says there are no elms, and Ted says so he couldn't have seen one.
Yes, that's your typical a-hole firing back at you in a pub.
Yes, that was good. I'm glad you reminded me of that. So then the chapter continues with Frodo trying to offer the ring to Gandalf, and that's too much power for him. He knows he can't possess the ring, or he'll become like the Dark Lord Sauron himself, and that's not something that he wants. And through this realization that he can't destroy it right now, and he can't give it away, so Frodo accepts his fate, and he offers himself to leave the Shire because he wants to save the Shire. But he knows it means going from danger into danger. But he thinks he has to go alone. Gandalf says you shouldn't go alone. You should bring someone you can trust. But he's also impressed with Frodo's eager willingness.
The resiliency of hobbits.
Yes. You can learn all there is to know about their ways in a month, and yet after 100 years, they can still surprise you.
And when Gandalf says 100 years, he is talking 100 years, folks.
He also suggests that Frodo travels under a false name, Underhill.
And it's after Frodo accepts that he's going to have to keep the ring that Gandalf realizes someone's listening outside. And even while they're talking about the ring, Frodo becomes aware that everything becomes very silent.
Gandalf goes to the window.
Hooray!
And pulls
like
Sam up. Yes. Yes, he was eavesdropping. And Sam says, I don't follow you, begging your pardon. There ain't no eaves at Bag End. And that's a fact. And this is a treat for Sam. He's very happy that he's being recruited to accompany Frodo in his quest.
Yeah, I actually clipped this verbatim from the text. Sam fell on his knees, trembling. Get up, Sam, said Gandalf. I have thought of something better than that, something to shut your mouth and punish you properly for listening. You shall go away with Mr. Frodo. Me, sir, cried Sam, springing up like a dog invited for a walk. Me go and see elves and all? Hooray! He shouted and then burst into tears. That's just the best thing. Laughter and tears at the same time is just the best thing ever.
Yes, and the imagery, the simile.
The dichotomy, too. Just
springing up like a dog. You can see that.
Yes.
That's all for now, and we're going to continue our quest. Stay tuned.
Namari.
This is the end. I'm going now. I bid you all a very fond farewell.